All right, what's going on, everyone? Greg Helbeck here with Michael Pinter, and this is the first episode of I guess we'll call it the New York Real Estate Investing Show. I am sure for a fact, there is no way there's another podcast out there that specifically talks about doing real estate investing deals, which comprises of a lot of things in the great state of New York. So I figured the first episode we'll make it a little open-ended. I guess we'll give both of our backgrounds and kind of how we got into this scenario, and then we'll talk about, I guess, some experience and some key lessons we've learned from investing in New York for 5 to 15 years, depending on. Collectively, Michael, we've been investing here. If you take your time and my time, we're almost approaching 2 decades. So I think we got a lot to share with people, hundreds and hundreds of transactions, and I'm really looking forward to this, man.
Me too. I'm excited.
Yeah. By the way, just before we get into it, you are like a YouTube superstar, for your niche of niches. See, I said I was specific there. Your niche of niches. So if you guys aren't familiar with Michael Pinter, type in flipping and wholesaling in New York on YouTube, and there's probably 400 videos of Michael just dropping value. Michael, is there anything on there that you haven't? That you haven't shared on YouTube? Because I feel like there's a video for literally everything. It's like a dictionary.
There's a lot in there, but I watched that little nugget you sent me, or that Tony sent me, about what I should be doing really to improve my channel, and I think I'm going to start working on that. I probably have to go longer. I probably have to start talking for 10 minutes, which is not easy.
Oh,
I got to do
leaf strategy. Yeah, that was good stuff for sure. That's a
very
cool
good
thing. Yeah, no, it was easy because it's not easy, but it was easy to understand that framework. It wasn't like some crazy algorithm where you gotta, go to Larry Page's house and buy him dinner, and then he's gonna put your videos at the top of the page.
Right. But that guy understands what YouTube is looking for to show. I didn't even realize that to get subscribers, you have to sort of fit Google, YouTube. I say Google because they own YouTube,
yeah.
But YouTube has this algorithm where they want to put you on the page and they want to put you on the side, and that gets people to find you. And I didn't even realize that was a thing, but that's a big thing.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And then besides just the keyword search, obviously the more long-tailed the keyword, the better, which just means for the listeners, if you type in selling my house quickly in Massapequa, New York now, that's more of a long tail keyword than we buy houses and then you happen to be in Massapequa. So, I mean, we could talk about SEO for days, but anyway, Michael, let's just get into your background. I mean, obviously, you've been doing this longer than me and you're much older than me. So, let's start with you.
I am twice your age, Greg. You're 25, I'm 50. So yes.
You're 50. I'm almost 26. In literally a week, I'll be 20. I think, a week from today, I'll be 26. Hot diggity dog. Look at that.
Boy,
so
I will never be twice your age again. So my background. So I was in the mortgage business. I worked for the same company from 1997 till 2013. So I went through the whole crash and did a million transactions. I was a loan officer, a branch manager. I ran secondary marketing, so I sold the loans in the secondary market. And during that time, I started dabbling in real estate, because in 2006 and 2007, if you had a pulse, you can get a loan. And I played around with a few. And then over the years, I also bought a few properties. And I realized in 2013, I really should have got out of that business in 2010. But I stuck around a little longer. In 2013, I started really going into real estate investing full time. And I've been doing that for almost 9 years now. And when I first started in 2013, for the first 4 years, I was buying almost all my properties at live auctions and online auctions. And I was gut renovating everything. I wanted to be Tarek El Moussa from Flip or Flop. That was my dream. I wanted everything open concept. And I had this stupid thought that my houses were going to be so nice that there's no reason anybody couldn't buy it. So I did that for 4 years, and the business grew really for 4 years.
Yeah.
But I realized after 4 years that I couldn't control how many properties I was going to buy if I was going to an auction where I could get outbid at any time. So about 5 years ago, I started going direct to seller, and was able to buy properties at a deep enough discount that I didn't have to gut renovate them. I could just assign the contract to somebody else to wholesale them, or I could close on them and sell them, without doing much work, which is wholesaling them. And if I wanted to rehab them, I always could. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And I'm a much happier person doing a lot less renovation. And about even though you have a project manager, Greg, about the problems that come with doing major renovation.
Oh, it's a disaster. I mean, it's a whole nother business within a business. I can't believe you did that for even 4 years, man. I mean, especially you're buying properties. I'm assuming the margins weren't even as good from an auction. And then obviously you like the thing with that is you have to close and you have to rehab or else you're not really creating a lot of value. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you gotta evict also. Very often you'd buy
Oh
these
man.
properties and they'd have the tenants in them or they'd have the owners in them. But the deals were good. Like I was happy. We made more money every year for 4 years, so I was happy about it. But just you're not in control of how you
No.
just didn't know. I could buy 3 properties one week and bring nothing for 5 weeks. You just don't know.
Yeah, it's a total guessing game, and then it's just that ultimately leads to uncertainty, right? And not consistency. Even though you were consistent, that business model was just flawed, you know. And now, I mean, what are the? I think you told me the other day you were like, dude, I'm selling my wholesale deals to people who wouldn't touch them because they thought that there was something wrong with it, but now they can't find deals at the auction, especially since
Yeah,
COVID's obviously happened, and now they're paying for premiums.
for sure. So I was the only guy that was really taking good notes for 4 years. I wrote down every single property that sold to any real buyer. Like occasionally those one-off guys who nobody knew.
Yeah,
But I still have the notes in. I got everybody's name and number who I thought was a decent buyer. Weren't that many in the beginning. It was probably 20. By the end, maybe
yeah,
there was 100. And I wrote down what they bought it for, and I figured I'd follow it. I didn't always follow it, but when I went to the direct to seller model, I thought I had the best buyers list ever because these were guys
yeah. Auction buyers.
I
Yeah,
knew what they were going to buy. There was a guy sitting next to me, and I knew what he would pay for a property. So when I had that property and offering it to for less, I thought this was the easiest sell ever. And none of those guys would buy anything from me ever. I think they had seen me buy properties and they just assumed if I wanted to get rid of it, that there was something wrong with it that they wouldn't know
yeah,
about. I think
yeah,
so. Really,
yeah.
for 4.5 years, I sent all my wholesale deals out that list and got very, very few nibbles from the auction buyers. I found other buyers, thank God, but lately, those guys who were still buying at auction, Nassau County, New York, has been shut down since last March. So for 14 months, they've had no deal. So those guys are all coming back to me now,
Yeah.
and begging me for deals and asking me, what does it take? Just give me the number, that kind of thing. I'm real, that kind of thing. But I'm most of these guys are not bidding as high as some other guys. So I'm selling every.
Yeah.
Well, I think Jason Lewis in Investor Fuel said it best, like about 3 months ago. He's like, do not pocket wholesale anything. Somebody says
No.
what the number is, just say, I don't know. Because every time I think I hit a top on a property, somebody is willing to pay me more. So when somebody asks me now what the number is, I go, the number is as high as I can get. I said, the prices are crazy right now, and I'm taking advantage.
100%. And that's the thing. Like, it's so comfortable to pocket wholesale deals, but like at the end of the day, this is a capitalistic society, and you're doing your company and your family a disservice, or even yourself a disservice by not squeaking out another 5, 10,000 per deal, because that adds up if you do 3, 4, 5, 8 deals a month.
More. I'm
Because
getting numbers now, 30, $40,000 more than I thought I would get.
yeah, it's
And,
insane.
I used to think that I had to really take care of my best buyers list, and that I should show it to them first and give them the best shot at it. And on
VIP
some level,
buyers,
I
they
sort
call
of
it.
still think that's like in the back of my head. But the truth is that a lot of these new guys are willing to pay more, maybe sometimes too much. And the guys who are real buyers are still going to be around and buy properties for the right price later. So, so I have one guy who really bought a lot of properties from me, and I definitely left money on the table on several occasions selling to him. So he
Yeah,
keeps calling me and saying, "Oh, I just get your emails. You don't call me anymore." And I'm like, "The market's nuts now." I said, when it calms down, I said, "I'm sure you'll be in the mix." I said, "But right now, there's just people paying crazy numbers." And he wasn't
100%,
angry
man.
at me. He was like, "No problem."
That's business, and people who are cool like aren't like those people who get pissed at you for that. Like it's like I did a wholesale deal like in I don't know. It was well, we've done many, but one of them I can remember like that scenario happened. I auctioned it off, and I had some people I was really close with who made competitive bids, and I sold it to someone else for a higher price, and they understood. Like they understand the deal. Like it's not like
Like you said,
nobody owes you anything. Like at the end of the
people
day,
if the
business.
people are cool. They understand it's just
Yeah,
business.
they
It's
get
not
it. They do the
personal.
same thing.
Right.
I would say, what do you do if you're in my shoes? And they're like, yeah, that's true. I always say that question. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you sell this thing 10 grand or less just because you're my friend? Like, no, it's stupid. No, it's interesting. Yesterday, And
You're
what?
back. You're back. You froze.
Oh, yeah, my Wi-Fi here is a little interesting. Is it better now?
Yeah. You just
Okay.
froze for 1 second.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom, man. We're gonna recall you, even though I'm out anyway.
You think he's responsible for your Wi-Fi problem?
He might be. My hair looks like his now. I'm kind of embarrassed, but just people are watching. I got some slick back hair right now because I haven't washed it in a couple days. Anyway, I digress. No, it's funny. I want to drive home that point one more time, and then I'll get into my backstory. But sent out a wholesale deal yesterday from another investor. And it's dude, this house is a disaster. It's like there's hoarded and it's like got junk everywhere. It looks like a murder happened in there. It's a disaster. And put it out, got some interest, and one guy right away was like, "I'll give you, 99." And can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. He was like, "I'll give you."
When you're wholesaling something from another investor, is he giving you a minimum price that he needs?
No, we just JV it. We just do a JV agreement and we just split it. Yeah. Case by case. He's just like, I don't do like my markup fee. I'm like, hey, like you got it for X. Like I'm going to try to sell it for Y. We'll split the delta. And I guarantee you my list will get you more money than your list. Like that's a guarantee almost. Just because I mean, my assistant works on the list every day for hours, adding people every single day. Like, so it's super responsive. Anyway, so made me an offer and it was like a 30K deal at that point, right off the bat. And like in Orange County, it's not a little cheaper than Long Island, obviously. So it's a good wholesale fee. And I waited around, told him he was cool about it. And it was a repeat buyer because someone's I bought from, who's bought from me before, and he obviously can perform. And, waited around another couple days or another day. And really that was the best offer because his house was a disaster. And he already has been in there because another knucklehead wholesaler fumbled the thing at the goalpost or whatever. So yeah, we sold it for like, we sold it, I think, for what we put. No, we sold it for, I think what we put it out for, something like that. But anyway, the point of that is you wait. You don't just take the offer right away. You shop it around. You make sure that is the case. And in that scenario, sometimes I will put a little bit of a value on a property. If someone's already seen it and been in there, that means I don't have to show it again, potentially, which could lead to trouble with the sellers. But anyway, I'm sure we'll do many podcasts on like how to legitimately wholesale in New York, and we'll obviously unpack the whole thing. So
we should do a podcast on how to show a property that we're wholesaling in New York.
Oh, that's gonna for sure.
We could talk for 2 hours on that.
Oh, dude,
nightmare
totally
stories,
doing that.
Good stories, bad
stories. Oh yeah, I think this is the first episode, and I really wanted this. We got to make sure that we take a mental note of this, even though it's obviously recorded. I think the more stories we can share about real life deals, and we have hundreds of them, I think that will drive the value on this podcast. We do like the Frank Kern model. You do the point, story, metaphor, and obviously the metaphor will probably take some thinking, but the point in the story, I think we'll be able to really be able to drive a lot of value for our listeners. So, Mike, do you want to ask me about my background just so I don't sound like a narcissistic asshole?
Greg, what's your background? How did you get into this?
I just didn't want to be like one of those douches who's like, anyway. So, so my story real quick is, I got started in college when I was in my early 20s. I was 20 years old. Went to a seminar. This is all I've ever done in my career. So I've never had a regular 9-to-5 job, besides like being a lifeguard and, getting kicked out of pools and stuff. But really this is all I've done. And, I went to a seminar, and honestly, Michael, it was about how to double close houses in the Hudson Valley. And I had no idea I didn't even know what that was. Like a double close. Whose
seminar was it?
Tariq Al Musa and his ex-wife.
By the way, I went, but he doesn't show up. I went.
No, he did not show up. I can tell you that.
I was so upset he wasn't there. I'm like, what's going on? I wanted to shake his hand.
No, yeah, I would be shaking the salesperson's hand, not the guy, not the horses, not the main character. So I went to one of those at the Ramada Inn in Newburgh. I know vividly where it was. It's right off the major freeways.
I know where it is.
Yeah, right there off 300. And I went there, and I was like, I didn't know what to expect from it. And then I remember like at the seminar, they were like, you could basically buy a house with someone else's money and resell it the same day and keep the difference. And I'm like, I go, what on earth is that? Like, and they were saying like 15, they were saying they weren't even saying the money that we make now on our deals. They were saying like 10, 15 grand. And like for a broke kid in their 20, like at 20 years old.
Seemed amazing. But let me ask you something. Did they even understand, the people who were teaching it, to understand how things work in New York? They were basically giving.
No. They were generic. Yeah, it was total tomfoolery, dude.
Just give a $50 check and no one's going to deposit.
Oh, yeah. Title company. Yeah. Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was title company.
Yeah. It was like, oh, you just It was insane, dude. It was insane. So yeah, they did not get specific on the market. They were like, according to your market, there's a lot of inventory you can buy. It's like, yeah, dude, you totally pulled it out of your ass. So did that, went to the seminar, paid $2,000 to get upsold. And it was worth 100% every single penny. I learned a lot. And went out on the street after that second seminar and started marketing, man. I've been marketing from literally day one. I've been like a marketer. Like the first day I got out of boot camp, I was on Craigslist marketing. Bandit signs, Craigslist ads, got a deal. Like, took me like a year to really do a deal. Honestly, it took me like a year of literally putting in the work every single day. Every single day I was working like a pack mule. And
when did you start recording your calls and critiquing them on Facebook? Was that during that year?
No, that was years after. That was about 2.5 years after, dude.
That's the first time I saw it.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. It's crazy. Like, and that was like 2.5 years after I started, dude. So I really was spinning my wheels for a long ass time. Like it was a lot, man. I was working like, bandit signs, and I was going on Craigslist and putting ads out. And then I was going on eBay and flipping stuff on eBay to like make money in the short term. I was like literally flipping stuff at garage. I was doing the Gary V model, and it was like, I was making like $1,000 a week. Like I was good at it. It was easy. I was like, dude, this is like,
you would just find stuff at garage sales and
flip it, dude. Flip it. Yeah. It was so easy, dude. Honestly, like I wasn't even a skilled negotiator back then. And I was making, I think the first week I made $1,700 in straight cash. And I was like, all right.
Just from somebody else's crap?
Somebody else's shit. Like literally someone else. I remember, this is a crazy story, and then I'll get back into my story. I remember this felt better than like the 100K deals I've done. It's like, I remember this one knucklehead. I can never forget this guy. I'm at this dude's garage sale, and I'm like a rat in like a sewer. I'm just picking through this thing, dude. And I go over to this garage sale. I'm like looking around, and I kind of know what the deal is. Like I understand what's going to sell and what's not going to sell, which is we could do a episode on knowing your market. But anyway, this guy had an Anderson window in the garbage, and I looked over, and I'm like, hey, is that in the garbage? And he's like, yeah, it's in the garbage. And I'm like, well, okay, well, can I just have it for free?
I'm going to take it.
Yeah. I'm like, can I have it for free? And he goes, yeah, sure. I go, there's got to be like mold on this thing. Is it cracked? I don't know what's going on. I picked this Anderson window up, literally put it on the market like that day and sold it for $75. And like, I just like always like doing that. So I started buying and selling stuff. And then eventually like a year later.
Well, I got to know more. So you're selling it on eBay just for somebody local, right? You're not going to ship that, right?
Well, that one was Craigslist. The big ticket stuff you do on Craigslist, the stuff you can ship like via media mail, which is like cheap ass postage. I would just ship it. I would go to the post office and ship it. But like if it was an air conditioning unit, window, lawnmower, chainsaw, that stuff you sell. Personally, I don't like going to people's houses either, because a lot of these people were like sketchy people in Poughkeepsie. So I would kind of meet them at like a strip mall or something and be like, all right, dude, like get out of the car, give me the money. It was like a mini robbery.
Neutral location.
Yeah, dude. One time I went to go pick up air conditioning units in like the straight like hood of Poughkeepsie. Like it was a scary area. And I remember I was just like, I freaking picked up these AC units and hauled ass out of there, man. Like in my shitty Chevy Cobalt. Dude, it was.
Yeah. It's hard to run. It's hard to run when you're holding an air conditioning unit.
Yeah, well, once it was in the truck or the car, I was out of there, dude. But anyway, so did a lot of that. After a year, I did a deal, made like $5,000, and then like after that, I started doing a deal every like 3 months, and I was one of those cash buyer employees, they would call it, and I was just feeding our mutual friends Larry and Frank deals, which was great.
I know who. I
learned a lot. No, that totally happened for me. I mean, I learned a lot from them. I mean, that was invaluable. So I started making like for a 21-year-old kid, like okay money, like maybe like $8,000 a month net, like if you really average everything out. But then after that, but that was like if you average everything out, like, eventually after a year and a half, like, so it wasn't anything that was like, it was enough money, but it wasn't like a life, because it was not consistent. Like 1 month I may make 15.
You were still in college then?
Yeah, still a college kid making decent money, but it wasn't consistent. Like one month I'd go nothing, and then the next month nothing, and then the next month $15,000. Next month $10,000. So, long story short, I started virtually investing after that. So I was like really tired of New York's BS, and I didn't have a lot of capital still. Started going into Dallas, Texas, and then obviously I'll tie back to I'm still in New York doing deals, but virtual wholesale probably like 40 properties in Dallas, Texas, over like from 2018 to like 2019, like those 2 full calendar years. I was buying and selling a lot of properties down in Dallas and made a lot of money down there. And then eventually the marketing channel I was doing, calling and texting, wasn't working as well as it used to down there, because it was a blue ocean before all these list stackers and stuff. So, I had enough money at the time to where like, I'm like, what if I just start doing direct mailing in New York? Cause I know that I've always known that area and I've always was doing deals there, like just out of old leads and just random stuff. I'd still do like a deal a month in New York when I was in California. But then I started going hard in the paint in New York again from San Diego. And then ever since then, I mean, now, I'm buying, 3 to 5 houses a month on average. That's like really I'm not doing 10, 15, 90 deals a year like these other guys are saying. Like I'm buying like 3 to 5 houses a month consistently every month. The spreads are very big. These are big deals. They're, anywhere from 20 to, 35, $40,000 wholesale deals. And then obviously the rehabs and stuff are higher. And now I'm picking up some rental properties. So seems like, it was yesterday that I got started. But now, I mean, I feel like a miniature veteran, not a seasoned vet, but maybe a miniature veteran, at least in New York, because I've done enough deals there to really, know the game.
I don't think anybody can be a miniature veteran at your age, but you definitely know what you're doing.
Yeah. I wouldn't say like for New York transactional real estate standards, I would say I definitely have earned some stripes, but yeah, for my age, there's no way. Anyway, that's my backstory. But I guess my big thing, the takeaway from that story is that it took me a long ass time to actually like get some consistency based on my situation. I didn't have a lot of money to market when I started. So it took me some time, but obviously it was worth it. And, now it's a great business and it seems to be growing every month.
It is definitely, I mean, I see what you're doing. You're doing great work. And we talk about taking time. It's a big deal. And I'm coaching people now. And like the first thing I'm trying to get with them is like their mindset, because a lot of people get into this business and just are out in a few months. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if you're not thinking about this in terms of 12 to 18 months,
no, you're done.
You're not, it's not going to work. So
No.
whatever marketing you're planning to do, whatever budgeting you're doing, you got to think of it in terms of a year and a half. And I think
100%.
it's very different in New York, and we should really get into some of the differences in New York. But one of the things in New York, and one of the things that actually made you want to go to Dallas area, was that just the sales cycle takes forever.
Oh, it takes forever, man.
And it's because of and we can get into this now if you want, but like the way the process works in New York is different than all other 49 states.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You want to talk about that? Or you want me to talk about that? Just because I'm guessing a lot of people watching this still don't even understand that.
Yeah, no, we got to make. Yeah, let's definitely. We'll both cover that. I mean, that is a real thing that people are just not aware of, even though they kind of have an idea of it. They don't really know the actual truth of the matter. Not just, oh yeah, you need an attorney, but like that's a general statement. So, Michael, I want you to kind of dig into that because you are the master at this. you are my Mr. Miyagi for this.
So there's so many things that make it different in New York, right? And so many things that make it more challenging, and so many things that make it better. So really, there really is some of these are two sides of the same coin. So just a quick synopsis, and then we can get into the details. The process takes a lot longer in New York because a real estate transaction in New York is different than a real estate transaction in the other 49 states. Because in the other 49 states, a real estate transaction takes place between a buyer and a seller. If I want to buy your house, I bring you a contract. I may or may not even have to give you a down payment, and we're in contract. You're legally obligated to sell it to me. In New York, that whole transaction takes place between a seller's attorney and a buyer's attorney. The seller's attorney prepares the contract and sends it to the buyer's attorney. And then your attorney, assuming you're the buyer, is going to negotiate with him about the details. So most attorneys charge several $1,000s for that. It's really a ripoff, but they need to justify that, and that takes the whole process. That makes the whole process take longer. Because the whole process takes longer, and it's like that circle. Most sellers in New York don't look at their asset, at their house, as a liquid asset as they do in other states.
Oh no, like, yeah, that's so true.
Like in Texas, if I'm in foreclosure or if I'm in risk of going to foreclosure, I have 45 days before the sheriff kicks me out. So I know that I better, if I'm in trouble, I can sell my house quickly, like in a week, to an investor and solve it. But in New York, the thinking is, even if I'm in, well, first of all, the foreclosure can take 15 years. But literally 15 years. That situation. But let's just say I'm in financial stress in New York. Most people don't say, wow, my house is where I can go get cash, because it's going to take months. It took them that long when they bought it. So the whole thing takes longer. So like a quick wholesale deal for me is 2 months. I don't know what a quick wholesale deal for you is in New York, but because of that, the whole process is different. And you looked at it and you said, I remember talking to you about it many years ago. You're like, screw this. I just can't wait this long. I'm gonna go to Texas where I can get me some quick cash. And,
Literally.
and I
Literally.
agreed. I was thinking, shit, I should be going somewhere like that. But now the pipeline goes through. So,
Yeah,
so
it's
the
different. Yeah.
mentality is very different in New York. That's the main thing that I see all the time, where people are asking me, how long of an inspection contingency can I have in my contract? Where do I find an investor-friendly title company? And what's the other thing? Oh, what contract do you use? And I say, all those questions don't apply in New York. There's no inspections in New York get done before the contract gets signed. You don't have an out. I'm selling a property now that I sort of wholetailed, and a newbie wholesaler came to me for it, and she was like, I need a 45-day inspection contingency, and I want to give you a $3,000 down payment. I'm like, listen, lady, if you want to, and I needed a signable. So I said, listen, if you want to wholesale this, I have no problem. I said, but you don't really understand how it's done in New York, right? So just to deal with those three things before we move on. The inspections get done before a contract in New York. So every time I go to contract, 99.9% of the time, I have to either assign it or close. Those are my only two choices. I don't have an out. So in other states, you sign this contract that you got online, and it says I have 3 weeks to do an inspection, which basically means you have 3 weeks to find a buyer. It doesn't work like that in New York. The second thing I get asked is, do you have an investor-friendly title company? So in New York, in 49 states, the title company is the entity that disperses the funds and runs a transaction. But in New York, it's done through an attorney. Title company are basically service providers here. They make sure two things. I mean, they make sure the taxes are paid and all the liens are paid. That's what they do. So you don't need an investor-friendly title company, you need an investor-friendly attorney. And the third thing is they ask what contract to use, and I go, you don't use a contract. The contract is going to be drawn up by the seller's attorney. You don't need a contract. Sometimes people are relieved, like they were waiting. Oh, really? I can get started right away. I'm like, okay, get started right away. But like, that's the kind of thing that people just don't understand how different it is in New York than the other states.
100%. And the point of that is, like, you can't take your information when it comes to logistics in New York from other people, because at the end of the day, that was Michael. That was honestly my biggest issue when I wish I knew about you when I got started. I mean, you were still buying at auctions and stuff, but like, I had no idea. Like, I was so like confused. I was like, but Sean Terry, and these are good guys, Sean Terry and Guru, they're saying get an escrow and do this. I'm like, people were telling me you can't do that, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, I didn't even know that, like, what existed, and that was causing a lot of tension in my life, because I was doing the work, but it wasn't lining up to what my perceived reality was, which was the perceived reality in Arizona or Nevada or California or Oregon, like whatever. And man, I wish, if I knew about you back in the day and you were still making these videos, I would have literally camped out like someone in the streets of LA outside of your office, with s'mores, you know?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
And the
seriously,
truth is,
dude.
like, Sean Terry's great, but Sean Terry openly says wholesaling is a risk-free transaction because you just put an inspection contingency on it.
In other states, that's true.
He's right for 49 states.
100%. New York, you're not. Yeah.
There's a lot of great guys out there who give great information. Max
100%.
Maxwell, Brent Daniels. There's so many of them that are
Yeah.
awesome guys. But these guys have never and will never and could probably, I'm not going to say could never, but never would want to do a deal in New York because it's so different than everywhere else.
Yeah. It makes everything a lot more complicated. But here's the big thing. And obviously, as the weeks progress here for the listeners, like, we're going to go in like legit nitty gritty, ridiculous detail on all the things that Michael and I have been mentioning. I mean, we have content lined up for months and months and months. But at the end of the day, you have to understand there's that book. I'm sure you've read it, Michael. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Halliday.
Love that book.
Love that book. Yeah, it's a great book. And I might reread that now because I'm going through something in my personal life, but it's just a good book to always visit. But at the end of the, I have it on my shelf. It's right.
I don't have it. I gotta buy it, but I read it.
I see it. It's up. It's in the top shelf there. It's a good book. Yeah. Oh yeah. I got like literally 100 of them. It's like top shelf, like the New York Islanders. Usually they've been doing real good, by the way, recently. Just saying.
Next too.
Yeah. Hey, when I get back to New York, by the way, I'm actually moving back. For the listeners, as of this recording, I'm in California. I'm actually made the decision to move back to New York. So Michael and I will be seeing each other more frequently. We got to do an Islanders game, dude, when I get back, or like, depending on it's the summertime, but we'll do some sort of sporting event, maybe a Met game or whatever. We'll figure it out, but we'll talk offline about that. But the point I was trying to make was, the reasons New York is hard, and Michael mentioned this briefly, is why there's such a big opportunity in our market, and our state. Let's just say it as a state. Michael and I are more downstate, but people are listening in Buffalo or whatever. It's the same thing. There's a huge opportunity, number one, for margins to be higher due to the average value of a property in New York because of the tri-state area and, northern Jersey and all that. It's generally going to be a lot higher than the, Phoenix, Arizona, or, somewhere in Iowa. Also, this is something that nobody talks about. And even though they know it, they still don't like to do it. There's less competition in New York because there's more barriers to entry. And a lot of people I know in New York invest in other states, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think about the amount of investors in like a Dallas or a Phoenix, real estate wholesaling in Dallas is almost like a dirty water hot dog in New York City. There's one on every corner, right? So how do you like that for a metaphor?
Not bad,
But
not bad.
but the deal is in New York, yes, there are people doing it in New York. There's a decent amount of people doing it, but it's nowhere near the level of competitiveness in these other markets. And the reason is, number one, sellers aren't really aware of this type of stuff as well as they are. They're more conditioned in Phoenix to sell for cash, right? Because they know the cycle's shorter. In New York, I mean, we get insane amount of leads, like, sometimes where we'll do a mailing and we'll get flooded with phone calls. Like yesterday, my assistant was like, holy crap, what's going on? And a lot of sellers, this is like the first time they've gotten a postcard, or they're so not aware of this concept of selling for cash. It helps you out. Your marketing is better usually. And, it's a way to not, swim in a red ocean, to use the analogy from that book, Blue Ocean Strategy.
Sure.
And it can work out to your benefit.
I find more than half the time I'm making an offer, I'm the only
It's just
offer.
you. Yeah. I would say that's the same for me.
And that'll something like that, when you tell somebody from Dallas or Phoenix or Vegas that, they almost don't believe you. Like they can't imagine it.
It's true.
Right? Because there's 5 million people. There's a line, there's a queue outside the house with investors going in making offers. With them, it's like, if I don't call this number back in 5 minutes, if I don't go see that guy in 15 minutes, I'm out. Much less competition here. Also, two things. What the book, The Obstacle Is the Way, I was in like a real funk at one point. And I was like, it takes so long to get into contract. But then I started thinking about it really from the book. The book helped me. And I'm like, well, it's hard to get into contract, but it's also impossible for
to get out of contract.
And that's a big deal. We take it for granted. Because in other parts of the country, you get into contract, and that guy just calls you up one day and says, "Sorry, I'm not in the mood. I got a better offer." So in some states, there are ways to sort of protect you where you could file like an affidavit of contract, or you
memorandum of contract. It's called. I've done it in Texas. Memorandum of contract. It doesn't mean shit. I got hosed on that. I freaking almost had to get in a lawsuit over that. I made $1,000. So it was going to be like $100,000 deal in Dallas.
So all it does is sort of, let's say, cloud title.
Yeah, it jams you up. Doesn't do shit.
But there's still title companies that will go around.
Yeah.
Then, whereas best case, you'll get a call later saying, can I give you $1,000? $1,000.
Yeah, it's BS.
For us, seller is not getting out of contract ever. Guy finds out you're wholesaling it, there's nothing you can do. So one of the best wholesale deals I ever did, one of the first wholesale deals I ever did, it was deal in Great Neck, which is not.
I've been to Great Neck. I played hockey there, man. That's right on Queens, border of Queens. Yeah.
I found like the 2 bad blocks in Great Neck. So this was like a legal 2-family, but the guy was really like an angry guy. Like the house was a disaster, and he didn't want to tell me he was living there, but he was living there.
Yeah.
And it was coming occupied with a second unit with like some tenant who never let me in. And I found the buyer for like $120,000 more than my price.
Wow.
And I talked to my attorney, and I'm like, I'm scared this guy's gonna walk when he sees how much money I'm making. And my attorney said words that were so beautiful. I really should have recorded them. He said, the guy may be upset at the closing, but he's still got to sell it to you. And he's got to sell it to you for your price. He's got no place to go.
Yep.
In New York, if a buyer wants to buy and a seller if you're in contract, and a buyer wants to buy, a seller doesn't want to sell, you can file a list pendants on the property, which is just like a foreclosure situation.
Yeah.
The guy will never sell it anywhere else. You have full rights to do that. And B, you can then sue him for specific performance for the entire amount. So not just like for the $120,000 you can make. I was going to buy the house for like $550. I could have sued him for $550. And since every seller is represented by an attorney, they know that. So if the seller finds out some shenanigans are going on here, I don't know what this kid is doing, but he's got no place to go if the contract's signed. So that's an amazing thing that we take for granted in New York.
Yeah.
People in other states are scrambling, right?
Oh, dude, I did that in California, dude.
Away. I can't show the property. I don't know what's going to be. I don't know what to tell the seller. Seller can flake out of me. We don't have that issue in New York. It's
No,
really a great thing.
it's amazing.
It's a great thing.
I almost lost $70,000 in San Diego a couple months ago from that type of tomfoolery. And I was like, if I was in New York, this guy I would have had him in a headlock, and I would have taken him to
Sure.
table, ladders, and chairs match, but
in a legal headlock.
yeah, yeah, just, so yeah, no, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And we'll do a legit, what?
What do you want to do? We want to do another topic?
We'll do a legit like podcast on this. Like we'll go like for an hour, like Michael and I we'll go hard on this topic, and we'll also drive home like real deals that we've been involved in where like we'll tell the whole thing. I'll reveal the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yeah, no, that's a huge benefit too, because just to wrap that point up, like when you get involved in an off market deal with a seller, a lot of gurus make it seem like it's so easy, and listen, once you get better at it, the longer you do it. But when you're really getting into like, it's not that easy in today's market. Like it costs me about $3,000 to get involved in a contract in New York off market. And that's like $3,000 of cash. Like there's no collateral on that. It's just a risk, right? So the way I look at it is if a seller goes into contract with me and the contract is, straight up, which they all are because attorneys do them, my downside is if I walk away, I lose a reasonable deposit, which I'm okay with. Generally, I don't walk away unless there's a real issue. But in the seller side, they're either going to be still in control of their asset with a deposit, or they're going to get sued for the actual specific performance. So it's actually funny. I always say when I rehab, Michael, anytime I take a deal down and I'm not a rental property, I hate being the seller because I am in a situation where I remember one time this freaking deal, it was a rehab, and this guy got a USDA loan and he had me jammed up for freaking 6 months in escrow, and there was nothing I could do.
100%.
So it's tough when you're the seller.
Buyer really has the upper hand.
Oh, the buyer is a huge advantage.
You need a good attorney to make sure that your contract's drawn up with outs and time, times of the essence and that kind of thing, because the buyer really has an upper hand. Seller cannot.
Oh,
I have sellers call me crying, saying the buyer's screwing me over.
Yeah.
And I say I'll step in, but until you're out of this contract, I don't know what I can do. I just bought a property in Massapequa where non-cooperating tenants for like 2 years, and this old man called me and then he told me that it's owned in a trust when his daughter is the trustee. I should talk to the daughter. So I talked to the daughter, and the daughter is like, let me just silence that. The daughter is telling me, sorry.
All good.
DND. Okay. The daughter is telling me, we're in contract with somebody else at this price. Can you pay a little more? And I'm like, okay. She goes, but what do I do with that contract? So I got into the nitty gritty. Her contract was she had to sell the property vacant and she could not get the people out. So I sort of went to contract again. And luckily, those people, the first buyer sort of she paid them off and they got out of the deal. And then I bought the property, and now I'm dealing with these two bozos that are living in there. But the point is, she was really stuck. She had promised a buyer to deliver a property vacant, basically open-ended, and she couldn't get the guy out. And I came in and said, I'll take it with the tenants. And I think she had to pay them like 20 grand to get out of the contract. But I was paying her a little more, and for her, she just wanted it done. Oh, by the way, the old man passed away in the middle.
Oh man, I've had that happen on a deal where the seller died the next day. He was an old, unhealthy guy.
Old man passed away, but it was already in a trust, so it was easy.
Yeah, that's
There was no probate, which is something that also takes a long time in New York. So you're right. Like if you're a seller and a buyer can jam you up. I have a property in Mastic right now. I'm in contract for the 5th time.
Oh, you were telling me about that the other day on the phone. Yeah.
I'm praying it works. Finally, this one works.
Mastic is super far from where you are too, man.
I hate it.
Not a nice area either, Mastic.
But it's up and coming.
So is Shirley, right? And they're like the cheapest zip codes in Long Island. Yeah.
Mastic and Shirley are like two of the last places on Long Island where you can buy something cheap enough for
rent.
But I had buyers and they just kept jerking me around, and I know this from the mortgage business, and you know it from selling properties. A standard retail contract to sell a property, the buyer basically has a get out of contract free card in that he has a mortgage contingency, and it's not hard to get denied on a mortgage. In my 17 years in the mortgage business, 16 years in the mortgage business, I got calls a lot of times saying, listen, I changed my mind. Just give me a denial. And I gave them a denial. It's really easy to deny. Document expires. It's something simple. So every time you go to contract, you can get screwed, and the buyer really has the upper hand. He has a way out if you need, and he can drag you along if he wants to also. So
100%.
You're right. But as the buyer, when we buy things, we
you're in a huge advantage.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'm not sure what your experience is on this. We're gonna try to keep these shows around 45 minutes to an hour. So Michael and I will chat for a couple more minutes, and then we'll make sure that the big thing for listeners to take too is like Michael and I are really introducing ourselves on the show, kind of setting the stage for what to expect in the coming episodes. But we're gonna go extremely detailed with all of these things that we're mentioning. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. But Michael, another thing I wanted to add to what you just said was, when I remember one time I tried to get my deposit back. Like I took a buyer's deposit on a wholesale deal, and maybe my attorney jacked it up or something, but he generally is really good. I remember I took a buyer's deposit. He walked away, the buyer, and the house was a disaster. It ended up working out. He listed it and it was all good, and I got a good relationship out of it. But I remember I couldn't get the buyer's liquidated damages because I was double closing, and that was rare. But sometimes if you have a good attorney, if you're like on the opposite side, they can fight and get your deposit back too. And this is if you're like for retail, it's easy because the appraisal could happen. And that's the worst part, dude. That appraisal always happens right before the closing. And it's literally like going to Las Vegas when you're drunk. Like you have no idea where's it going to end.
It's like a roulette wheel.
Yeah. I remember I just did a big fat cat rehab, and the appraisal, it was an FHA loan, and the appraisal was like literally the week before closing. And I was just going to bed at night, just like, oh my gosh, I hope this appraisal goes through, because I had like private money at like 12% on it or something. So I just wanted to.
Did it come in for value?
What?
Did it come in for the value?
Oh yeah, it did. But it was questionable because the market's so crazy right now as we're recording this in 2021. Like, I was like, yeah, I think it'll come back. But yeah, it came back. And the point of that is that if it doesn't come back in your favor, the appraisal, there's two options. You can either, the buyer can either come up to the table with the delta, or which is the difference between what the appraisal is and what they're in contract for. And in Long Island, that's obviously like, that could be like a shitload of money. Like if you're buying something in like, a good area of Nassau County, I mean, you gotta be, it's like, that could be 6 figures sometimes. And then also, the lender will have to adjust, like they have to basically renegotiate. And then at that point, your pro forma gets screwed up. So, and that is the point of that, is you're at a disadvantage when you're selling real estate and not buying real estate, especially in our area. I'm sure you've had that happen before, where there's nothing you can do.
Sure.
Like, what are you going to do?
When you sell retail, but when we wholesale,
when you sell retail, yeah.
When we wholesale, then we usually with dealing with people who understand.
They know the deal. It's the cheap price for a specific, like the terms are like, hey, you're walking this thing, and I don't care if there's a dead gopher living in the basement, you're taking the property. There's no negotiating here.
I just sent out a wholesale contract, and the attorney marked it up and basically negated all my advantages. Didn't put a time on it. Doesn't want to see. I'm like, I don't think we're going to sell it to this buyer.
No, it's not even worth it. Even if 5% for 10 grand less or whatever, and it's like the guy's going to close, I put some inherent value on that.
We need certainty, right? That's what
certainty. Yeah, right. You made a good video on that the other day. So anyway, hope the listeners got value from this episode. Michael, I think that this episode really set the tone for the upcoming shows we're going to be putting out here. And I think that another thing that we'll probably end up doing after we get a lot of our initial content out is we'll have some sort of ClickFunnels page. I'll have my assistant set up, and we'll have like, Q&A or something or like that. So we can, spend 45 minutes, doing a content, and then we can spend another 15 minutes answering some questions that I'm sure some listeners will be bringing in. So we'll have this more really engaging, and I'm sure in the coming weeks, we'll have some great web addresses to drive people to, so they can, submit their questions and whatnot. So Michael, do you have any parting words for the first episode of our podcast?
It was an honor to share this podcast with you, Greg, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Likewise, I hope all the listeners got some value today, and just make sure when you listen to this content, you're actually going out there and you're either having this help you decide to be a real estate investor. And if you've already decided you're a real estate investor, make sure you're taking some sort of nugget away from each episode and try your best to really apply it, because there's real power to consistent compounded action. And I tell you right now, Michael and I just spilled our guts for like an hour, and we just gave you guys some of the goods. So there's a lot of stuff you can take from this episode if you rewatch it and apply. And I guarantee you it will help you produce more results in your business. So Michael, looking forward to the next one, man.
Very good. Let me know when you move back here for good. We got to go out for dinner.
Of course.